Wait, did Peter Schiff and Charlie Lee just agree on the value and scarcity issues facing NFTs and Bitcoin? What a crazy time we live in. Crypto celebrity and Litecoin creator Charlie Lee apparently agrees with Peter Schiff, the infamous gold bug who really hates crypto and doesn't think it's worth anything. Now, this thing called NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, are kind of sweeping the crypto space lately. And basically, they're digital collectibles for anything like works of art to the first tweet ever made by Jack Dorsey or whatever it is. And they've been basically taking the world by storm. A lot of people are issuing them. A lot of people are buying and selling them. There's a lot of money going into this stuff. And Charlie Lee, Litecoin's infamous creator, weighed in on this recently and basically says that he doesn't believe they really have any kind of value. Yeah, he took the critical approach and he basically said, an NFT is a digital certificate to a collectible that can be easily, cheaply, and perfectly duplicated. Part of the value of owning a collectible is the prestige to be able to say, only I own it and can display the collectible, and no one else in the world can do that. NFT reduces that value to only I own and can display the certificate of authenticity. I will end this thread with an image that I found on Reddit. It's funny because it's true. What's the value of an NFT of a song when everyone in the world can own the actual song for $1? Well, first off, Charlie might be a little bit of a hypocrite here because his entire claim to fame is being the guy who copy and pasted Bitcoin. I mean, literally. Litecoin is one of the oldest alternative cryptocurrencies, altcoins, as they used to be called in a day and age when people thought it was Bitcoin and then all altcoins, rather than today when, it's a very diversified field. And basically, Litecoin copied the Bitcoin code base, had a slightly different mining algorithm and different issuance and different block times. But other than that, was just going to do the exact same thing as Bitcoin with a couple minor adjustments. And so basically just saying NFTs have no value because you can just sort of copy and paste them. And even though the original has a limited supply, then you can make more and more originals. You can do infinite originals. So therefore, why would this one have more value than others? And it's a little funny because in so saying, he's kind of attacking the value proposition of cryptocurrency, especially ones that don't provide technical superiority over others that are just, well, the original Bitcoin or, Litecoin or whatever. It's kind of funny with this sort of self-defeating argument. It's also even funnier that Peter Schiff pretty much agrees with them. In fact, this is what he said on the subject. Bitcoin is not really scarce, as there is an infinite supply of other cryptocurrencies with identical or superior properties that can be created out of thin air to compete with Bitcoin, including coins spun off of Bitcoin itself. Now, as funny as it is that these two, who are often kind of panned in the greater crypto space, have come out against, I guess, the digital scarcity properties of cryptocurrencies and NFTs. As funny as that is, I have to say they're both kind of right on this. Digital scarcity is only as valuable as it is. If you create only 18 coins ever, they're not necessarily valuable just because they're scarce, because that's all that can ever be, because someone else can really cheaply create another 18 coins, and et cetera, et cetera. And even though you're one of those only ones, it's actually not that scarce. And of course, with artworks and collectibles and things like that, those are physical goods that are in scarce supply that can be created. And that's what gives them their value, is people demand those things and you can't just create them. An NFT on its own, you just create an NFT and okay, that's the last one you do. You can just crank out more and more and more eventually, and there's no scarcity behind that. So therefore, even though this is one of the only NFTs out there, it doesn't really have any value. I mean, okay, so what happens if you create like an NFT for your tweet or your original tweet? Wow, that's so special. Do you have anything to do with the original tweet? No. And what happens if you create more than one NFT on the tweet? CryptoStash recently did a video on the value of NFTs, and he kind of touched the surface on why this argument doesn't hold up on its own. And let me get into that a little bit and expand on it a bit. So as CryptoStash pointed out, and of course, apologies for putting it in my own words, the thing that is scarce with an NFT is artist intent, for example. Like if you produce 5 NFTs on this one specific artwork, or one per artwork or whatever, and the artist intends for that to be it, then that has value. Even if the artist creates more and more, then as you mentioned, you could essentially just later down the line say, oh, I'm going to make another NFT on the same artwork. I'm going to make another. But then that dilutes the value of the original. And so the actual NFTs themselves are not scarce. They don't actually have value, not on their own. What does give them value is when they're associated with another scarce thing. Like, for example, the artist intent is scarce. The artist creates this thing and says, this is my work, my authenticity behind this NFT, and I'm not going to make any more. And then therefore, you have that bit of the artist's attention and approval in this one little NFT. It has nothing to do with the artwork anymore, I think. But it is, at that point, that's the scarce thing. And so there's only one NFT, and the artist who created the NFT is not going to create more. And so that's the scarcity. Or let's just say there's a physical good that you get access to via the NFT. That the NFT is an actual tool to basically engage a physical thing, like give you access to using a car. Like, for example, what happens if in the future you have like a Tesla or something, or a fancy car, and the only way you can prove ownership of this is through an NFT. And that NFT gives you exclusive rights to actually access the features and use it. It's the same thing with content creators and collectibles, right? So if I say, okay, I'm only going to sell 5 NFTs this month, and that's it. And they say January 2021 edition or February 2021 edition of, say, the Digital Cash Network Supporters Club. Again, maybe you'll see this in the future. We'll see. But then I only issue those 5. That's a piece of my time and intent as a creator, and that's what's scarce. And so if you buy those, I could just issue a million others. But like if I only issue 5 per month and you buy those 5 and, give a shout out to whatever, thanks for all my NFT buyers, you're the guys. And then you can just show, hey, look, I have this thing that says I supported this guy and his work during this month. And that's permanent and that's irrevocable or whatever. And some people might, let's just say, the channel goes under at some point or get hit by a bus or whatever, and everyone's like, I love that guy and his content. Guess what? I still have that NFT of when I supported his work at this time, and I can sell it to someone else who just like wants to have that little piece of history of this was support during this time, even though they didn't originally support it. But there's a lot of things that can give value to NFTs. But remember, the NFT itself just can't have value. It has to be tied to something else that is scarce. The same thing applies to cryptocurrency. There's nothing magical about the Bitcoin codebase anymore. There was in the beginning when there was only one thing like it and only one thing had that utility. But now that it can be copied and pasted, there could be anything. There's no reason Bitcoin needs to be worth more than Bitcoin Gold, whatever else, Bitcoin Cash, SV, whatever else. The only reason it is because it is tied to things that are scarce. First off, it is the product of scarce development, where that the Bitcoin code base is the most audited or one of the most audited and well worked through code bases out there. And so that's why other projects backport to it. So there is that scarcity. You can't backport to Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV the same way. It doesn't work as well. And also name recognition. There's only one B word, right? Bitcoin. The other ones, not as much. There's a scarce brand name to that just, has already permeated out. People have this concept in their mind of Bitcoin that if you just call it like Litecoin or something else, it's just not quite the same. And then, of course, the biggest thing that's scarce is actual usage and integrations. Everyone who has them, you can't just like airdrop coins to all those people and make sure that they have them. You can't replicate the same thing. You can't replicate all the integrations and all the actual use and the investment by other companies and other things that give it value. So one Bitcoin on its own, even though it's, non-fungible, I guess, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. If you have one of those, that has nothing to do with its actual value on its own. Who cares? What you do care about is all the stuff that's put into that scarcity. Bitcoin is kind of an NFT for hard work and integrations and brand awareness and all this other cool stuff that goes along with it. Same thing applies to gold. There's only so much gold in the world, but then again, there's only so much silver in the world. There's only so much nickel in the world. There's only so much copper. Every single precious metal or whatever, there's a limited amount of it. Why did gold become so popular? It's not better in that way. Well, it became popular because of utility in different things. First off, because it's so limited and stuff, it's easier to carry like your life savings in gold than it is like nickel. Can you imagine a truckload of nickel that you're just taking around? Whereas you could have a few bars of gold. And because of its scarcity, it's more useful as a technology. And of course, you go into industrial uses and other things. And let's face it, gold probably was not nearly as valuable as a whole before you came out with coinage, when you just had like a lump of like gold and like, all right, here we go. Like, okay, how am I going to take this for my business? You have to have a whole little kit to figure out exactly what it's worth, how much it weighs, and just figure it out. Like, that decreases its utility. But once you have a coin that's stamped on it that just says, oh, I recognize these markings, this means it's worth this much, and there we go, I can trade it. That, of course, increases its utility, and then it's just not just some random rock. This little gram of gold right here, all those markings on it really help it not just be another piece of whatever. This increases its value. And just the same as gold had to discover its true value by being attached to utility and scarcity somehow, it's the same thing with cryptocurrencies. As they say, broken clock can be right once in a while. And definitely Peter Schiff and Charlie Lee are kind of broken clocks on crypto. But hey, they're kind of right in this way. Let's just see if they get the rest of the picture and fully understand the value of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and NFTs. I'm not holding my breath, are you?